Welcome to our podcast series, Friends of the Mountains, where we delve into the incredible work and inspiring stories of individuals dedicated to improving the lives of both mountains and their communities. I'm your host, Bharat, bringing you tales from the mountains every Friday. I'm back again, yet with another episode of Friends of the Mountains. You are now listening to episode 3 of the Friends of the Mountains, and it is about a young designer forging her way with the help of her work, her design, and how she engages herself with the community. You'll be able to hear a lot of her stories as she's an explorer and she embraces her versatility. I'm sitting here with Shruti Umesh Chakke. Shruti is an exhibition and museum designer who graduated from National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad. She comes from a humble background, growing up seeing her father paint, creating masterpieces one after another, sparked the artist inside of her from a very early age. The Shruti I know does not limit herself from taking on any challenges. She's not only a curator but also an amazing artist, a transdisciplinary design educator, a traveler, a storyteller, and the list goes on and on. She's the founder of Thinkers, a transdisciplinary design studio working towards providing design solution from a collaborative approach. She curated and designed Anandi learning spaces and apps. She's a 2 times SDGs Design Award winner for her work in design and education. She traveled around Ladakh and stayed there for a long time, listening and gathering up ancient stories, designing experiential spaces, making wonderful paintings of nature, educating the youth of the mountains. And all of these things that I just said about her makes her a true friend of the mountains. So, over to you, Shruti. Welcome to our podcast.
Hello. Hi all. My name is Shruti as Bharat proudly described me. So I'm actually an exhibition and museum designer from India and coming from the heart of a small town called Pune. I was brought up in a household of artists surrounded by history and culture. So I would like to say that my father was my biggest inspiration growing up as he showed me the unique approach of artists and taught me how to respect different ideals and perspectives from an artistic point of view. I would like to say that he was the main reason for my art interest in art and my ambition for completing a design degree from one of the prestigious design institute in the country, the National Institute of Design, also known as NID. And
Right.
currently, I am situated or located, I would say, in Torino, small city near Milan. Right now, I am studying transdisciplinary mobility design, and it's a great journey by far. I have completed like 1 year in this experience and I'm looking forward to what more life has to teach me, I would say.
Nice. So, Shruti, will start with your journey in mountains of Ladakh, the first time that you went to Ladakh, and I would like to ask what brought you there.
I would like to tell like my first journey was in 2019 where I came to Ladakh as a museum designer
Mhm.
and my first interaction was with the town called Skurbachan, which I would now like proudly call it as my village. So in Skurbachan, I was designing a community museum for the people over there, where we focused on agriculture and kitchen museum. It was an interesting journey and an eye-opening experience for me because it was an entire new world open to me, and it was amazing meeting people, interviewing them, understanding their stories, seeing life from a different perspective. It definitely opened my perspectives towards life also and made me understand the potential an individual can hold. Like I would not like to restrict myself only as a museum designer because I was also the Angmo over there. So
Oh,
Angmo was an name given to me by the localites over there,
oh, I
and
see.
yeah, it's a local name, and the meaning of the name is a strong, independent woman. And I was very obliged to get a name like that, and then it stick to me since then. Like anytime I go to Ladakh, I'm Shruti Angmo over there.
Oh, so beautiful. So, what inspired you to take up this project in the first place?
So it was our fourth year systems design project where we were focusing on heritage management. Like my perspective was more of a heritage management, museum designer, research associate. And
Right.
it was an interesting journey because we were sent to Ladakh twice. first time where we had to just understand everything, understand the background, conduct workshops with the elderly and the children over there. And the second time was more about like going into more technicality aspect of the project. So this was my first interaction in 2019. Then the next time I again came to Ladakh was in 2020 as a research associate for an arts and craft project where
Okay.
we were interviewing different artisans all around Ladakh. So that was another perspective towards understanding the land. And then finally, when I came to Ladakh for the third time was for a long-term commitment, I would say in 2021 as a
Okay.
curriculum designer with the Himalayan Institute of Alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another profound experience, I would say.
So we'll get there in no time. I would like to come back to this project in Skirbichon again. So I would be interested to know how it benefited the locals there. And as I can clearly see, you have engaged with local communities, even the elders and the young kids. So how it benefited the locals in that sense?
Benefited the locals in the form of sometimes people don't value or understand the resources, the culture, and the heritage right around them, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So this entire intervention which we conducted where we had workshops or asked the locals some questions, it was an eye-opener for them also to value what is around them. And the main purpose also was to create a circular economic module where the people also generate revenue and it being a town which is untouched by tourism, it could also boost local tourism and the locals can also benefit from them. So it was basically setting up a system or a module where the villagers, the people over there understand the value of their own land and their culture, I would say. Like it was more giving an eye opener for them also and us. So it was more like an anecdotal learning for us and as well the villagers. That was
Yeah,
an
I guess this really important. I mean, to give villages that kind of exposure and somehow keep them connected with their tradition in that way. So as an outsider like me, if I go there, I would get to know more and more about them in that sense. So that was great. So also people always see the final outcome, in your case, this museum or the project that you created, but not everybody realizes the amount of groundwork or the story of the people involved. Can you share your views on this in reference to your project? What is your view on that?
So I understood your point, but what we tried to focus in our complete research and execution was to highlight the intangible heritage, which are the people.
Mm-hmm.
So there were elderly people with rich stories, and even the people themselves are the heritage, I would say, of that particular land. And the execution was carried out in a way where their stories are also reflected in the museum.
Right.
So we tried to bridge that gap because the modern museums usually try to just highlight the main part and somewhere blur the boundaries between the past or the history behind it, or people hardly understand, okay, this is an object, but
Yeah.
whom does it belong to? What is the story behind that object? So we tried our best to keep in loop and keep that story of the person, of the family intact with that particular object if a person is seeing in the museum. So maybe we tried our best to bridge that gap which you are currently talking about. So maybe you should visit the Khar and the Gompa over there. So there are two different museums where we tried to showcase this.
Amazing. So I would like to tell our audience, as they already know, that Shruti is an amazing artist. And having said that, let's go a little back in the timeline to understand what inspired you or who taught you to be a good artist as you have become today.
I would like to answer this by saying that everyone is an artist, I would say. Like artist is not defined to like, okay, like there are few people who are artists and few are not.
Mm-hmm.
Like artist, being an artist is more about a mindset. Like it's like a creative mindset. I would say like my mother is also an artist in a way, as
Right.
it could be in small actions. Like an artistic vision is more in the actions, not only in the drawing or some output. Like a small example could be the way she stores the plastic bags or small, small bags which we get at home, she never throws it away. So that's like a creative perspective of more sustainability. Like it's in a sustainable lifestyle she's choosing. So it's also like an artistic perspective she's having towards small, small things of not throwing it away. And I think every person is an artist. Artist is more of a perspective you have towards things or how you see.
Right.
So I would like to say that everyone is an artist. Is just maybe we need to be proud enough to call ourselves like that. To like because calling yourself an artist is like letting yourself be lost in a world which is only yours, kind of.
Wow, having that kind of perspective is, I guess, important to, keep motivated, like self motivated in that sense, and seeing everything from a whole other lens and a positive attitude. Wow, amazing. And your father is an artist too, and I'm
Yes.
sure that must have had impact on while you growing up and eventually becoming a amazing designer that you are now. So,
Yeah.
would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, I would like to give credits to my father, of course, because since childhood he was making me see things which maybe I wouldn't have been able to see it in that particular way. Like just drive, like being on a vehicle with him, he would just stop the bike and just show me a cloud and say, see, that cloud is in this structure. And if you look at it in this perspective and look, can you see the monochrome or the tone? And I used to just be like, what is this person saying? And then after a few years, when I grew up and got the design education, that was my realization point like, oh, my father was always telling me this. So I would say that it's more about a perspective or how you see things and the freedom which comes with it. Like the best part of being an artist is having the freedom. Like I could see the things I want to see it in that particular way. And that freedom of thought was given to me by my father. And maybe I would like to pass it on. This message of having a freedom of thought, a freedom of perspective is what makes one an artist, I would say.
Right. So, coming back to your work in the mountains, can you share about your work in educating youth in the mountain community and your experience through that?
Education, I always perceive education as such a powerful tool in itself because it has the power to shift paradigms, shift a particular mindset, break the local traditions, or basically make a person think out of the box, not fall into the trap of the system, I would say. And the part of like education and design which resonates or I feel like working the most is because maybe of my own experience, like my own educational experience where I was truly not happy with this theoretical way of learning which are maybe present educational system offers, where
Mm-hmm.
it's more about reciting, memorizing, and less practicality. And then after getting like a entire 5 year experience of education to be more practical from NID, I realized, okay, like this is the education we should have since kindergarten. Like our entire primary, secondary education should be based on these aspects. So taking that inspiration or learning from your own experiences, I tried to bring that change with the help of design. So all I was trying to make children look at things the way they want to look at it rather than they are told to look at it in a certain way. And when children are given that freedom to look at things the way they want to, you can see the wonders coming out of it. Like it's, I won't say like I'm teaching, I'm also learning at the same time, I would say. That's the reason why I like design and education as a combination because it's not like I am teaching, I'm also learning at the same time. So it's a beautiful, what can you say, like a perspective or a subject altogether.
Hmm. That's interesting. And I remember the time when I was also there in Ladakh. We were colleagues, and you you went on to organize a workshop in a village called Likir, where you did this amazing workshop. It was like super fascinating. I remember something about the photography from the sunlight, and also I remember your work in Secmol school also, where you design some activities for students. So would you like to throw some light on that?
Surely. So the workshops in Likir were more about understanding the pottery history and interacting with the local artisans over there.
Mm-hmm.
And the workshop I conducted was cyanotype photography. It was actually conducted in Kargyam, Changthang, with the primary school children over there. And it was an
Okay.
interesting take on photography itself. Like right now, we know about photography is through camera, cell phones, and such digital tools. But photography existed before that. And the beauty of it was like creating a photograph by your own hand. And also by collecting small, small things from nature and understanding chemistry and like science behind it and how light reflects. So basically, it's like you are learning a particular skill, but you're also understanding the chemistry, science, nature, how it works behind that. So it was like an overall learning experience, like how you can learn, say, subjects like chemistry by conducting a particular activity, how you can learn design by creating photographs. So that was an overwhelming experience for me because the also the way the children responded to it. And we also took the workshop one step ahead, where after creating photographs, the
Mm-hmm.
next day we created what can we say, like small prototypes for the nomadic museum, which would be upcoming in Kargyam. So there is
Oh,
a project of nomadic museum coming ahead. So since the museum is for the people of Changtang, it was nice to know their perspectives on it, especially the youth's perspective of how much they know about the nomadic lifestyle, what are their intakes on it, what is their perspective, what would they like to see in the museum. So it was interesting how children created different displays with the help of the medium of cyanotype photography. So it was an amalgamation of the skill which they learned a day before and for something coming up in the future. So
right.
it was a great learning experience, and it was all based on like when you all you need to do is like have that facilitation perspective, a basic design idea, and then once you just become when you know how to balance it, then the children themselves come up with most of the content or their creativity. It was
Fascinating.
interesting.
Fascinating.
Then at Secmol, basically I used to go as on my own will to just conduct activities in my free time. So during Diwali, I conducted activity where it was more about music theory with ragas. So like how color theory works with Indian ragas, how music has impact on colors and design or drawing, and how ragas are the different time of the day it can be played, and how different time of the days have different colors. So it was teaching color theory with the help of music. So it's really nice when education is combined with a particular activity, creativity, and also we then explain the logic behind it. So it was interesting to conduct such activities and
Right.
also see the outcome out of it.
Would you like to share like this activity in detail? I mean, like, I'm sure our listeners would be fascinated to listen to, what goes in these activities, and if you have like some personal experience out of that, like during your interaction with students and.
Surely. So the activity I would like to talk about maybe the Sekmol one. So it
Mm-hmm.
was conducted on the day of Diwali. So by far Diwali has been known to students or youth as the festival of lights. You just like maybe burn crackers, enjoy, wear new clothes and all. But we
Mm-hmm.
took a different perspective or a different direction towards celebrating Diwali. So basically, when the way you draw rangoli, we were like, yes, let's draw the rangoli on papers. But this time, we will draw rangoli with the help of ragas. So different ragas were played, and they were also told, like children were given the information of which raga is this. Is it a morning raga? Is it an evening raga? And everyone were given the freedom to, okay, like now I'm playing a morning raga, and let's start putting whatever colors comes to your mind. So they were just made little bit conscious of their actions, so that consciousness was okay. So this raga is playing. So whichever color comes, start putting it out. And the interesting fact was everyone, like almost 9 out of 10 children picked warm colors. And then they were explained, like, see, without telling anyone, everyone picked up the same set of colors. Why? Because this is how our mind reflects to a particular rag. A morning rag reflects warm colors. Then when the evening rag was played, the melody made them pick cool colors. So this is
Mm-hmm.
how they understood the color schemes, also the Indian music and the significance of music, mind, and the colors coming into picture. And then also, of course, the rangolis were created on those lines. So how a Diwali could be celebrated in a different way. And then after that, we took one more step ahead where we had like a meditation, like a group activity where we tried to connect with your higher self. So like one more step towards consciousness. I think what lacks in today's education is a child is not conscious enough. That child is not made conscious enough of its own thoughts, its inner voice, or the surroundings. So such activities help students to become maybe more aware, understand things around them, understand small perspectives. And it was a really eye-opener. And when everyone were asked about what they felt, some students were like, I felt like I'm on a different planet. Then some student felt like I felt reborn. Then one person said that it felt like I am no one, like I am in the space. So it was so interesting to know different thoughts getting the thoughts provoked by such activities. And it does make initiate a thought or a different dialogue in each student. So such activities are really nice, I would say, in a way where students understand themselves more. And I think there is a need in our current education system to inculcate such self-conscious driven activities. So this was one of the detailed activity, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree to you, Shruti, here that things are interconnected in the way that sometimes we don't understand or we fail to understand, but they are interconnected in such a beautiful way, and it can bring up such a good outcome, especially with students, because at their age, like, they can be easily molded to anything. They are not so rigid.
Correct.
So yeah, I'm sure your activities must have helped them a lot. So going a little bit back in the timeline, and let's talk about the Anandi project, and also about the SDG Design Award. So would you like to?
So the Anandi project was basically in the final year of NID. I decided to bring my vision of a self-initiated education and design project to life, I would say. So as I
Mhm.
began with my research based on understanding the education system of India, I came across various problems, but developed my awareness towards cognitively challenged children who are often neglected by this fast-moving world, I would say. So the educational research opened my mind to different perspective, and then I decided to work on like a interactive learning environment for children with cognitive challenges.
Mhm.
The idea was Anandi learning spaces. It was a learning environment with the vision of uprooting the traditional theoretical learning. And it was an overwhelming experience because that was the point which make me rethink about my very first day of NID, where we were taught of designers should be sensitive. And the exact learning came back to me during my last year graduation project, like how sensitive I had to be in every step of designing this project, as the students were cognitively challenged, so the terminology used need to be carefully considered. Then whenever you're designing something, it has to be thought universally, like you have
Mhm.
to think about every small detail, even a small corner, like if it's a sharp corner it might hurt a child, or if
Right.
you're designing something, how easy it is for that child. Because the challenge with such special children are that their learning is very repetitive. So if you teach them something today, there is high chance that they might forget it tomorrow. So how an environment, how a curriculum is repetitive, and how you can take up these challenges and build something around it. And for me, the greatest challenge was maybe the pandemic. So I was designing learning spaces by sitting in a closed room.
Mhm.
So it was like troubling me with the fact like I'm designing outdoor spaces by sitting indoors, and how can we come ahead with this? But then there was this SDGs competition. This was SDGs International Awards 2020.
Mhm.
And I realized the theme was design ideas to overcome the pandemic. So I was like, okay, the challenge which I'm facing right now, this is the platform for the challenge. Let's think in this direction, that what can be done during the pandemic for such spaces. And then going ahead or developing my brief more, I realized that now is the time how these outdoor spaces can be brought indoors. because the main challenge or the main motive behind my project was, okay, I'm developing something, but it should be implemented as fast as possible, or else what if this, because when we were going through the pandemic, we had no idea when will this end. And the
Right.
biggest challenge was that the education should not stop. Like no matter what, a child's education should not stop in this period. So the challenge I took is how to bring the outdoor to indoor. And then I was like, yes, with the help of an app. And then that app was for the parents where they can become teachers at home. Since now the teachers are at school, now it's time for the parents to become teachers. And then
Wow.
this app idea was developed because of the pandemic, I would say. And it was like more, I did not think about winning. It was more about, yes, this is a platform I got, this is a direction I got, let's go through it. And then I realized, like, when you set your mind to something important which you feel is important and you feel is the need of the hour, necessary and would bring an impact on the world, I think then the all things start coming into picture. And it being a self-sponsored project, I was really afraid that how will I be able to do this, is this even possible. And then the award, I would say, it was just a validation that if you have a good idea, a good thought, you need to go ahead with it. Like nothing would stop you from that. So I would say that,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so that was my first award also, I would say, and my first project.
Congratulations to you for that. So, who organized this SDG Design Award?
Kyushu University in Japan, they organize these awards every year with different themes. Different SDGs are highlighted during this. So my highlight was quality education and citizen communities development. So focusing on these, I was working all this while. Okay.
So, then after that, what was the second award about?
So the second award was basically for a project called Bus of Opportunities,
Mhm.
where we design educational services for the youth. So the journey for this was again the same. I just went through the website of the SDGs and found like the this year's, like 2022's theme was again education and design. And for me, it was, this is it. Like I want to participate. Like it's not for the award, but this is something I've always been doing, and this is like my platform. So let's try building it up. And then I made a team of 5 people, including me, where
Mhm.
in a week's duration, we all came up with an idea of a educational bus in the region of Changthang, where there is a high educational migration happening currently. To overcome such challenges, how we can make the youth stay in their own land, understand their immediate resources, and create opportunities around them was a source of inspiration for this particular project. So we created, or we would say, like, we designed a bus and a curriculum which would help the youth understand the potential resources and opportunities in their own area. So this was the idea behind the second project. We of course, like all 5 of us, didn't expect it to win the gold award. We submitted it because it was more like a passion-driven project. Like, yes, let's all come together. This is an interesting subject. Let's do it. And
Right.
then same, I would like to share the same message I shared earlier. Like if you have a good thought and idea, you just have to work on it, I would say. And
Wow.
this was the second award about.
So, work with the pure intention always pays off. That's
Yes.
that's what's that's the takeaway from it for me, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
And we've been hearing a lot about Changthang. So could you just paint a picture for our listeners to, like to understand how the Changthang is and basically where it is located and the topography and the beauty, everything, everything.
Tangtang is one of the largest plateau, I would say, in Ladakh. Also,
Mm-hmm.
it is famous for the Pangong Lake. And my first interaction with Changtang was when I visited with my friends just to see the Pangong. So, and second was when I went for conducting the workshop. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful vast region with so much opportunities, so many opportunities, and so much potential, I would say. But it has been ignored since quite a while because of the heavy snowfall which it gets throughout the year. And because of the heavy snowfall, the roads are blocked. And maybe this is the reason why people migrate during winters. And the youth also tries to migrate because this is the only region in Ladakh without a college. So when it comes to the point of higher education, every child from Changtang has to migrate to Leh or Delhi. And because of this educational migration, there are certain problems which the youth faces. But coming back to the beauty of Changtang, I think one should visit and witness it yourself. Because if I start talking about it, it's like it will go for like an hour long. It's that beautiful, I would say. It's just like a small piece of heaven. I would say a small part of heaven out there. And
Wonderful. Now we will move to stories from your time with the locals. I remember you telling me the story about an old Abi and Meme. By the way, for our listeners who don't know what Abi and Meme is, so in Ladakhi, Abi is like old granny and Meme is a grandfather. Am I right, Shruti?
yes.
Yeah, so I remember her telling me a story which was like which moved me and like almost it melted me. So we'd like to hear that story again from Shruti. So just tell us about your time gathering up the stories and your contribution to the local communities through that. Yeah.
So this story dates back to 2019, where when it was my first interaction with Ladakh. And so as we were interviewing different people who we would call as the intangible heritage also, I came across this one Ladakhi couple.
Mhm.
The grandpa would be almost around 88 years old, and grandma was around 90, 91. They were like quite old, but one thing the meme which said to me was he was describing about the fact like how it is nice and overwhelming when we have like biryani with your friends, when you like drink chang with your friends or relatives. It's always, of course, overwhelming and nice. I would like to like quote this in Hindi itself because it was said to me in Hindi. He was saying कि दोस्तों के साथ चांग पीने में तो मजा आता है, लोगों के साथ बिरयानी खाने में मजा आता है. And then he spoke about his wife, like but इसके साथ पानी पिया ना तो भी अच्छा लगता है. So it was such a small
Wow.
thing. It was such a small gesture, or those small lines just struck with me forever. Where I would like to say it was in a way a true meaning of love. Like I found love over there in a way. It was like how just drinking water with his own wife gives him happiness and peace just by doing a simple gesture like that. It was like when he said that, it got me into teary eyes. I was overwhelmed with that statement, which made me understand, oh, like love can be as simple as this. So these are like different emotions I interacted throughout in Ladakh, where it could be like understanding love, it could be understanding friendship, it could be understanding family, it could be also understanding God in itself. So there were different interactions, but this is one of the most overwhelming, which has struck with me forever, I would say.
And one thing that Shruti is hiding here is like she used to narrate all of her stories around Ladakh in the form of paintings and cool illustrations. So I was always used to got fascinated by that. Why don't you tell them about that a little bit, just to create a mental picture of one of your best work?
I would say I don't have any best work by far. It's all my work in progress only always. But I always like drawing. Like drawing is like meditation for me, I would say. So it always gives me mental peace. It lets me get out like the thoughts and ideas from my head into a paper. And for me, like drawing is my hobby, I would always say as a kid also. And it helped me to reflect my thoughts, like what I saw. Of course it's not like exactly like that, but maybe my version of my experience is how I always try to store those experiences in the form of drawings in a sketchbook, so that if I'm telling it to my friends or family, I have like a storybook in my hand and I could just narrate a story like, okay, see, this is the mountain, or this is the abale, this is the craft. So I like collecting stories in the form of drawings and pictures. So yeah.
So nice. Okay, coming back to your work back in 2021 in Ladakh. So, would you like to share something from that?
In 2021, I would like to say I played many roles in Ladakh during that time. Like, of course, like I first came as a museum designer, then a research associate. Then the third interaction was, maybe I was officially as a curriculum designer, but I played many roles. Like I played a role of a facilitator. I was conducting a design system course for the fourth year batch of exhibition design from NID, where I curated an entire museum design project of an experiential cultural heritage center in Leh. And it was not only the curating part of it, then I was also a teacher or a visiting faculty for the fourth year students. Then at the same time, I was also a manager. I was looking into logistics, and there were so many different roles. I understood it was not like you're not defined by that one title the company or your job has given you. You end up exploring so many different parts of yourself. So it was quite overwhelming and exciting for me because I have not initiated something like that. Also, it was challenging because it was my brainchild in itself, where I was like, okay, let's conduct a project like this where we can bring in young talents and facilitate and create an experiential center. And also, it was an official collaboration which I led between NID Ahmedabad and Hayal. So even to conduct that collaboration, it took a lot of like creating agreements, creating a proposal, and the work it takes. It's an altogether different. So I realized like, okay, now I'm working as a manager, or if I'm working as a, what you can say, like a logistic person. I'm now working as a research associate. I'm now working as a facilitator. Then all of a sudden I am a coordinator. So there were like so many different roles I was switching on daily basis, or not even daily basis, hourly basis. So this was like quite interesting to see myself being so many people or so many different uh,
Versions of
roles I was,
yourself, yeah.
yes, like versions of myself, which I never thought I would be. And
Right.
taking responsibilities, like it was a, hey, like I would say, like a tricky and a huge responsibility to make like an official agreement between two institutions, which I've never done in my life, but I did it for the first time. So it was quite interesting, and then it also made me reflect on the potential. Like if you think about something, yes, you can make it happen, kind of. And
Hmm.
maybe I would like to say that all these different roles, like then maybe like while doing this, I was also going to SECMOL and like conducting activities. So I was a teacher there. So and
So
then
many
next,
things.
yes,
Yeah.
and next morning we were conducting a workshop. So as a workshop facilitator. So there were so many things which, in a way, actually motivated me to pursue my master's in transdisciplinary design, because it's a transdisciplinary approach where I'm uh, doing one thing in so many different perspectives. So maybe it could be the experience, my work experience in 2021 motivated or guided me to choose this path which I am currently on, I would say.
Hmm. So nice. So let's come back to present day and let's talk about the master's course that you are doing from Italy. So many of us don't actually understand what transdisciplinary is, like at least a layman or like a commoner who is listening to this podcast right now. So could you elaborate on this a bit and also tell us about this master's course? Maybe there are aspiring design students or like other students across the world who may be listening to it and might want to, hear something interesting about it.
Surely. So this idea for transdisciplinary, of course, like sparked from my own personal experience, which I just shared, where I understood myself playing so many different roles. And I was not sure about transdisciplinary because earlier I was thinking about maybe I would do my master's in education and then combine design and education. But then after coming across this particular stream, I realized, yes, like this is the approach which the world also requires at the moment. Like if you are solving a problem or if you are doing something, it's not like you have to look at that particular thing from one perspective. Like looking it in one way might result into a fast solution, but not like a forever or a long term solution. I realized it's
Right.
very important to look at a certain thing from different perspectives, different ideologies. Like you have to think about it in, like if I'm designing something, I'm not only a designer, I have to look at it from an engineering perspective, maybe from a doctoral perspective also. When you look at something from holistic approach is when the design or the outcome you create is more universal and a long term. And I think in present design field or the interventions which people are carrying, long term solutions is what the world needs the most. And I think this approach is really important to carry forward. And going in depth of this master's program in itself, it's also about the mobility design. So, of course, like all this while you saw my entire journey, the word mobility was nowhere. And now, all of a sudden, past 1 year, it has become such an important part of my life. So, even I was not familiar, like, I never thought that I would go into a direction of, okay, transdisciplinary, but mobility design also at the same time. And understanding or learning more about mobility, I realized like it's as essential as the air we breathe. Like it's important but yet invisible. Like mobility is basically like moving from one place to the another,
Hmm.
and this is something every individual does it on daily basis. Like we
Right.
we don't name it like, okay, I'm doing mobility, but it happens with you. Like even if you have to go from one place to another, that's mobility, like the movement which happens. And
Right.
I realized like now mobility is as important as food, clothes, and shelter. Like after these three essential, it could be mobility which comes into picture. And I think now with the technology interventions, the moving world, it's very important to design the mobility solutions with a transdisciplinary approach where you not only think about, okay, like a vehicle, no. In mobility, we also think about the user experience, like how the user's journey should be, like from starting from the house to the destination a person is going, what all interactions he's having throughout, how a journey can be with different intensities, because of course we cannot design one solution for all because we all are different. There are so many different people, we all move by different intensities. Like we cannot categorize everyone as people, like okay, this is a set of people, they are moving from point A to B. No, everyone moves with different intensities. Like a young adult can move more faster as comparison to an old person. So
Right.
here the solution or the design we are making will be two different solutions, it won't be the same. So these are like mobility design or transdisciplinary approach is more about complex systems, complex design, understanding the complexity which comes when you're designing something. And it's interesting because it opened my eye to an entire new world, which is a part of our world. Of course, I was a part of this world, but I never noticed. So basically, I would just like to share that we are currently working on the future of mobility in the cities of Milan and Turin, how it would be in the year 2014. So how like it's very tricky to imagine or design something 20 years ahead or 30 years ahead. Like we are designing the future kind of. And when you're designing the future, you never know what happens, what will come into picture. Like until yesterday, we had no idea about Chat GPT or AI coming into picture, but now it is. So we never know like how it would be in 20 years, how the technology would be, how people's lifestyle would be. And it's an interesting area where this transdisciplinary approach, where we are a team of 10 people from 10 different countries. So 10 different countries brings 10 different cultures, 10 different perspectives, 10 different backgrounds. And when you merge all together, then that holistic purpose approach or the purpose comes into picture. So it's
Right.
a very different, I would say, a world together, but interesting because it's like if there is a start, you can see there is a start, but the end is which you have to decide because there is no end to an approach, I would say. And that's the challenge maybe currently as a transdiscipline designers we are looking for, because when it comes to complex systems, you don't see an end. So
Yeah. So as an
I
architect,
think,
I would agree to that
yeah.
because we also often come across some design problems and where we have to, there is no one approach to it. There are always multiple approach, and it's not necessarily comes from one set of mind. It has to come from, various set of mind to become a solution. And like that leads to the question where I want to ask you very specifically about, if you have to put a definition for transdisciplinary word, what would it be?
A transdisciplinary could be everything. In one word, I would say, is basically thinking about everything, like every small thing around you. It's more about like a highly developed consciousness which a person should have, where you do not ignore anything, where you consider every single thing, you value, you appreciate, you try to preserve, and on
Hmm.
these lines you also try to develop while balancing all this. So a
Hmm.
transdisciplinary approach is more of
Right.
a holistic or a universal way of thinking, I would say.
Yeah. As far as I understand, what it is like approaching a problem, maybe a same problem or a set of problem through different set of disciplines, and
Yeah.
ultimately creating one solution or multiple solution, but like all those solution revolves around that particular problem. I think that may justify the transdisciplinary design. Okay. Moving
Yeah.
on to the next question is about the future possibilities. So what are the various things one could do having equipped with this new perspective of transdisciplinary design?
I would say this transdisciplinary design offers you to look at, as I said, like any problem from various directions. And I think it's important. It is important to look at one thing from various eyes, because sometimes as designers, when we are good at something, we stick to that very particular direction, and often we ignore the other perspectives or other directions which should be considered, I would say. But the future possibilities, or I would like to say the outcome of a transdisciplinary approach, is that people will feel a part of the system. Like the gap between a solution and the problem, there's a huge gap, I would say, where
Right.
people are not understanding, or the system is at times so complex that even though people wish to make it better, they don't know how to. So, or I think, like, as humans, there is a good instinct which every individual has towards a betterment of, say, nature or society, or the actions or the choices one makes. But the current system, or the way that the systems are designed, it's not offering that perspective to the audience or people to make that conscious choices. Maybe a transdisciplinary approach might make them more conscious of their choices, and may also make them feel one with the system. They won't feel that they are different, or there is huge gap between what they are being offered and what they want. It would maybe interlink and make one. Like, it's more about bringing together, like bringing nature, bringing people, everyone together. Because currently there is a huge gap between us and nature also somewhere. Like, we are a part of the nature, but these concrete walls where we stay, we often feel isolated or away from the nature. But one interesting fact of transdisciplinary approach is to understand we are one. We are one with the nature. We are a part of the nature. We as humans, we are not like something different. We are also an animal, I would say. Like, we humans belong to the animal kingdom, and
I
that
agree to
difference,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it would be more better world. I think a transdisciplinary approach, if it's inculcated into early education, I would say, like, I would like to use this learning of mine to develop a curriculum where it's more about a cosmic education related curriculum, and maybe help kids to develop this perspective. And I think
Interesting. So, like, do you think it would have made any difference in your previous work that you have already done in Ladakh and in like in your city, like after having this knowledge acquired from this transdisciplinary approach, do you think it would make any difference now to your any of the work?
I think yes, because maybe earlier while designing something, maybe I might be thinking more like a experience and museum designer. Like, I might be restricting myself to look at things as a museum designer only, or maybe as a facilitator only. But then this approach is allowing me to put on hats of different perspectives and different professions at the same time. So I think maybe having this, inculcating this perspective might change the way I was looking at design also earlier. So I think it would change a lot.
Right. So, what are the future possibilities for you? Like, I know you are working on your own startup, or rather a, space or a platform where you want to bring different kind of approach in one place. So, would you like to walk us through your brainchild, I would say?
The brainchild is actually called thinkers for people who think in general.
Right.
I Yeah, because the word thinkers actually came from the transdisciplinary way of learning. Because when you are a transdisciplinary designer, you have to think a lot. Like, you have to think so much that, okay, like, one part is designing or creating something, but maybe like more time of your life as a transdisciplinary designer just goes in thinking, and the power of thinking. So that's why the name is also thinkers. And in this startup of mine, I'm again like thinking to curate three different aspects. First is, of course, the transdisciplinary way of designing things. Second is mobility design, and the third is cosmic education, which I really want to develop on. So basically developed a curriculum of cosmic education which can be inculcated in different schools in India or around anywhere. Like create a basic blueprint of a transdisciplinary approach based education which might help the new generations or youth develop this approach from a young age. So this is one of the core values or the vision of the Thinker Studio, I would say, to pass on the knowledge at a very early age so that the entire new generation coming can be more conscious or more creative the way they are growing.
Right. So let us talk about your work in your own city, Pune. What all projects that you did there, and how you contributed to your own city through whatever perspective you have gained from your design.
So in Pune, I was working with the Pune Municipal Corporation in designing the heritage walk
Oh,
and the wayfinding system which comes along with it. So it was quite interesting because for me, it being my hometown, I know the places, I know the stories, I know the fact that a place which you can see in the month of, say, July won't be the same in the month of December. There might be something else happening. But if a person is visiting in July, I think it is important for that person to know what happens in December also. Because maybe like right now it's blank, but I know that since I've been raised there and seen the place, how a place changes, like the art of place making. So that was one good experience for me, like my own experiences reflecting into whatever I'm designing. So all I tried was to have like a storytelling way throughout the city, like how people can interact with the city, how the city can make them feel welcome, and the city talks to them, the city tells the stories. And the approach behind it was more of a cosmic city perspective, which I was trying, where it's like feeling one with the city and not detached from it. Like if you're not from Pune, sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm a tourist and I don't know much about it. But basically, if you look into the core factor, any place, anywhere, like we there is this ownership criteria. How can we break into it and make it more like welcoming and make a person feel one with the city? So maybe my work by far was more about designing heritage walks and wayfinding systems for the city of Pune. Maybe we are still working on developing it. So this is it by far.
so nice. So, coming on to the last question, okay? So, what would be the piece of advice you'd like to give to the people who are about to start or already have been doing similar work as you did?
I would, more than advice, I would just like to share my thoughts. I would say, like, it's not like an advice because, or maybe my advice is like, listen to everything, but take what you want to take. Don't take everything, I would say. That's
That's
the
true.
advice. Yes, yes, yeah. Like, see everything, witness everything, learn everything, but take what resonates with you. It's not necessary to like take everything or leave everything. It's just what fits you, a person should take in the first place. And I would like to say that when a person is driven by a pure thought or a pure idea, like when your heart is pure or into doing anything, into saying anything or working on something, I think things work out. Like you should just believe that when you are moving by a true intuition or a true intention at the same time, I think things fall into place. So you don't have to be afraid of your own idea or whether anyone would like it or not. You should like it in the first place because it's your thought and your idea. And I think that's all I would say. Like just move with a pure heart. I would say like to people like in this field, of course, design is a field where you always feel inferiority complex, I would say, because of course there are so many great designers all around the world and you can see work much more better than yours and like 10 times better and you feel sometimes overwhelmed or inferior. But I think the main part is beyond that is how you feel within. Like if you feel something about yourself or your own work that yes, this is my idea, this idea is going to impact so many people, this is going to make lives better of so many people, and just go towards it. I would say like nothing should stop you because you're moving with a true intention or a true passion. And then I
Wow.
would just, and in this journey you will see the magic. like the magic happens in the journey.
Yeah, I do believe that. I'm sure our listeners would gain a lot from your conversation. I personally have learned a lot about you through this conversation, even though I know you, but I think I know you much better now. So thank you, Shruti, for agreeing to do this podcast with us. And we hope to see you next time.
Surely. I'll become a transdisciplinary designer and then we will discuss how it was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that was Shruti Umesh Chakke, and I think you got it what I was talking about her earlier, right? Also, you can reach out to Shruti on her Instagram underscore SHRUTIEY.pdf, and do let us know about how you like this episode on our email address friendsofthemountains.info@gmail.com. In case you haven't checked out our previous episodes, our last episode was about two brothers building their own community and a mud house up in the mountains of Himalayas. So, how did they do it? What inspired them? So, you can listen to their story on our podcast. And you can follow us on Instagram for exciting updates at Friends of the Mountains. Also, this podcast is available on other platforms as well, like Apple Podcasts, YouTube, etc. You can reach out to us on our Instagram page at Friends of the Mountains. You'll find the relevant links in the podcast description. I'm your host Bharat signing off. I hope to see you next time.